This is Talking Law on Radio 97. Despina Priala joins us every Thursday morning from Priala Legal in Runaway Bay. We're moving through our mailbag, and thank you to everyone for sending in their questions. We've got Darren, also Vicky from Pottsville, Sally from Southport. Thank you to all of those people for sending your letters, and we will get to your letters next week. Despina, we talked before the break about all of the issues, and there are so many issues actually we didn't cover to do with wearing of face masks and QR codes, etc. But one thing you did mention previously is that you had to manage through a whole stack of different links through a website. It actually wasn't an easy thing to get to some of the answers to our questions.
Yeah, that's right. So I had a lot of hyperlinks in front of me and had to jump through a lot of different pages to get to some of the answers that I wanted.
And most people wouldn't have the time or the inclination or the ability to do that.
Well, that's right, because some of the hyperlinks were actually in the Q&A section, which is at the bottom of some of the pages. So then you have to click on the right question to then find the content, which then has the hyperlink. So yeah, it was difficult to navigate, and you have to have a bit of time to do it.
I think they might be doing it deliberately.
Well, you said that, I didn't.
Be cool, be cool.
Yes.
But isn't it funny that these things that are so important, and they keep stressing how difficult it is to actually find the information?
Well, that's right. Yes, exactly. And one of the pieces of information, of course, that I delved into a little bit was our basic human rights. Okay, so there is reference to the Human Rights Act that we have, but I had to find that reference. It took a bit of time.
Bit of digging.
Bit of digging from, do you have to wear a face mask, to, well, yes, down the track I found the link to the Human Rights Act and your basic human rights, and are they being restricted by these orders and directions that are issued under the Public Health Act, which is a different piece of legislation. So the Human Rights Act is a very important piece of legislation, 100%, and it's been around a long time. So under the Human Rights Act, you've got people like Queensland Health, for example, and different states have the same obligations, and the police, right? They've got obligations, being public entities, to take positive steps to protect people's rights. And one of those rights is the right to life. Okay, so you might have heard that over the years, the right to life. So an example to protect the right to life, as they were referring to here, is the direction to wear masks and use the QR code. Now, you can disagree with that, but that is the basis, or one of the bases, for issuing this. And they're saying in this particular reference that, well, we have the Human Rights Act, we do also have the Public Health Act. What we say is that, yes, your rights as a human being to wear masks that are mandatory and use the QR code are being restricted, aren't they? I mean, we can't argue that. Your rights, my rights, they're being restricted because we're being told to do these things for a period of time. But if they're being restricted, it's got to be necessary and proportionate under the Human Rights Act, okay, for them to remain valid and be valid.
And to me, proportionate really stands out there, because we get told to wear a mask for 4 weeks, and then none for a few months, and then it's back again. So who defines proportionate for us?
Yes, well, the public health officials and various other public entities. But in terms of proportionate, yes, you're restricting human rights, but it's got to be for a limited time, right? So that's why you probably see these directions come out that are 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 14 days, whatever the direction is. You can't have a long period of time, say 3 years, that would restrict your human rights to do various things. That would be considered disproportionate.
Yeah.
So that's got to be taken into account. And just on that note too, the means to enforce have to be proportionate. So people are issuing fines, but the fines are very small, as I understand. So if you don't wear a mask, they'll be issued a fine, but the fine's not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yep. So it's got to be proportionate too. And then you look at the other heading, it's got to be necessary, legitimate and important. So clearly they're saying, well, yes, we feel and we say that it is necessary for this short period of time in different times of the last few months that you have to do these various things that are mandatory, that do restrict your human rights, but we're allowed to do it because we say they're necessary and proportionate, all right? And as long as they're not discriminatory, then we can do that. Okay, so it is interesting because we're dealing with, really what we've talked about today is 4 pieces of legislation. You've got your Public Health Act, you've got your Privacy Act, you've got your
Human Rights
your Human
Act.
Rights Act.
Yeah.
And then also you've got in the background, don't forget, your Anti-Discrimination Act.
It's a real. Seems like it's a real fine balance, isn't it, to try and get that right. I mean, obviously, you're simply not going to please everyone all the time.
No, you're not. You're not. So at the core of it, your human rights, we have them, and they've got to be protected for public health and safety, but they've also got to be necessary and proportionate, as we said.
I'm pausing because I didn't know whether Wayne had another question.
No,
I'm
that's
so
all right.
sorry.
No,
Did
that's
you?
all right. You only had about a minute to go.
Yeah, okay. So I was just going to do the
We'll
out.
just wrap it up. Yeah.
Great advice there, answering all your questions about the law, and we will be answering more next week, which will be exciting. This is Despina Priala from Priala Legal. And Despina, if anyone wants to ask you a question directly, where can they go?
Yes, so they can phone the office 55291 or they can email our office admin@prialalegal.com.au, and they can text mobile 0400 141 269. And I would like to say very briefly, thank you so much for those people who did send their questions. That is just fantastic, and love to receive more.
And we will get to them. breakfast@radio97.com.au if you have a question to add. And Despina, we look forward to seeing you again next week.
See you then.
Bye-bye.